Origins and scriptural foundations. The figures of the Dajjal in Islam and the Antichrist in Christianity stand as central warnings in each faith's end-time teachings. While they emerge from distinct theological traditions, they represent a common enemy of truth, a final deceiver who rises before the end of the world, leading many astray. Understanding their origins and scriptural foundations is essential to grasping how each religion portrays the ultimate battle between good and evil. In Islam, the Dajjal is known as al-Masih ad-Dajjal, meaning the false Messiah. His story is not detailed in the Quran itself, but his description is extensively found in Hadith literature, the sayings and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. According to authentic narrations, the Dajjal will emerge near the end of time as a powerful deceiver, performing false miracles and claiming divinity. His trial is considered the greatest fitna trial in human history. He is said to be one-eyed, with the word kafir, disbeliever, written on his forehead. The Dajjal will travel the world rapidly, spreading corruption, and demanding worship. His appearance will mark the beginning of the final conflict, and he will be slain by Jesus Isa upon his return to earth. In Christianity, the Antichrist is a figure rooted in the New Testament, particularly the epistles of John, 2 Thessalonians, and the book of Revelation. The word Antichrist appears explicitly in the letters of John, describing one who denies that Jesus is the Christ and opposes the truth. In broader Christian eschatology, the Antichrist is often portrayed as a singular, final evil ruler who will arise before the second coming of Christ. He will deceive the nations, exalt himself above God, perform false wonders, and lead a period of rebellion and blasphemy. Revelation speaks of a beast with global power, often identified with the Antichrist, who will demand worship and persecute believers. Though their scriptures differ in format and detail, the shared concept is unmistakable. Both the Dajjal and the Antichrist are foretold as impostors, who distort divine truth and claim false authority. Each will rise in a time of global crisis and spiritual confusion, gaining followers by preying on fear, ignorance, and desire. Their stories serve as warnings to remain vigilant and faithful in a world that will increasingly blur the line between truth and deception. These figures are not just villains in a story, they symbolize the climax of human trial, where every soul will face a test of allegiance between the temporary illusions of falsehood and the eternal reality of God. By examining their scriptural roots, we begin to see how deeply these figures are woven into the spiritual consciousness of both Islam and Christianity. Appearance, abilities, and deception. While the Dajjal in Islam and the Antichrist in Christianity represent similar forces of falsehood, their physical appearance, supernatural abilities, and methods of deception are described in distinct and revealing ways. These descriptions not only reflect each religion's theological framework but also offer insight into how each faith views the final confrontation between truth and lies. In Islamic tradition, the Dajjal is described in vivid physical detail through numerous authentic hadith. He will be a man, yet he will possess unusual and terrifying characteristics. The Prophet Muhammad described him as blind in one eye, with the other eye appearing like a floating grape. On his forehead will be written the word kafir, meaning disbeliever, which every true believer will be able to read, regardless of literacy. These features are not symbolic but literal signs meant to identify him. Despite these physical deformities, he will possess great influence, aided by a massive following and supernatural powers. The Dajjal will travel swiftly across the world, entering every city except Mecca and Medina, which will be protected by angels. He will bring with him a false paradise and a false hell, deceiving people by rewarding those who follow him and punishing those who resist. He will command the sky to rain and the earth to produce crops, giving the illusion of divine power. His greatest deception will be his claim to be God, and many will believe him due to the apparent miracles he performs. Only those rooted in true faith will be able to see through his lies. In Christianity, the Antichrist is not described with the same physical detail, but his spiritual and political nature is emphasized. He is often portrayed as a charismatic and powerful leader who rises during a time of global crisis. According to Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians, he will sit in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be divine. The book of Revelation describes him as a beast with great authority, supported by a false prophet who performs signs and compels the world to worship him. The Antichrist will perform lying wonders, such as calling fire from heaven and healing apparent wounds. These acts will deceive many, even those who once believed in the truth. He will establish a system of total control, possibly through a symbolic or literal mark that people must accept to buy or sell, referred to as the mark of the beast. Those who accept it will align themselves with his rebellion against God. Unlike the Dajjal, the Antichrist's deception is more ideological and spiritual, undermining the identity of Christ and exalting human power. Both figures will operate in a time when moral clarity is lost, and falsehood becomes appealing. They will attract the misguided through displays of power, promises of prosperity, and rejection of divine authority. In both traditions, their defeat will only come through divine intervention by Jesus in both Islam and Christianity, restoring truth and preparing the world for final judgment. Defeat, aftermath, and theological significance. The eventual defeat of the Dajjal and the Antichrist is not just a victory over a single deceiver, it represents the final triumph of divine truth over global falsehood. In both Islam and Christianity, this moment marks the end of a dark age and the beginning of a divinely guided era. Their destruction is not accomplished by human strength or politics, but by the direct intervention of God through his chosen servant, Jesus. The details surrounding their fall, the consequences that follow, and the lessons they symbolize carry immense weight in both traditions. In Islam, the Dajjal will spread terror until the moment of his death at the hands of Jesus Isa ibn Maryam. According to Hadith, Jesus will descend from the heavens in the eastern part of Damascus, wearing garments dyed with saffron and supported by angels. He will arrive at a time when the Mahdi is leading the believers in prayer. Jesus will not bring a new message but will act as a just follower of the existing Islamic law. When the Dajjal confronts him, he will melt like salt in water and be slain at the gate of Lud in Palestine. After this divine victory, Jesus will rule the world with justice and humility. He will abolish false doctrines, break the cross, and end the worship of anything besides God. Peace will spread, and the earth will be filled with blessings. There will be no more war or oppression. Jesus will marry, live a natural life, and eventually pass away. His reign, along with the Mahdi's, is seen as the final chance for humanity to return to God before the signs of the last day unfold. In Christianity, the defeat of the Antichrist is just as dramatic. When Jesus Christ returns in glory, he will appear in the heavens, visible to all. The Antichrist will be leading the forces of rebellion, empowered by Satan. At the battle often referred to as Armageddon, Jesus will slay the Antichrist with the breath of his mouth or the sword of his word, as described in 2 Thessalonians. The book of Revelation says the Antichrist and the false prophet will be cast alive into the lake of fire, a symbol of eternal judgment. Following this, Christ will establish his kingdom. Some Christian interpretations believe this will involve a millennial reign, 1,000 years of peace and righteousness. Others believe it will usher in a final and eternal kingdom. The devil will be bound during this time, and the faithful will live under the direct rule of Christ. Eventually, Satan will be released one last time before the final judgment, where all creation will be judged, and evil will be forever banished. The defeat of both Dajjal and Antichrist reminds believers that deception can rise to great heights, but divine truth will never be overcome. These figures symbolize not only individual evil but the collective rebellion of mankind against divine authority. Their destruction marks the re-establishment of God's will on earth and the beginning of the end of history as we know it.